Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host Keegan. And this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And today we have a very special guest, and her name is Elizabeth Kipp.
Thank you so much, Keegan. It's great to be here. I'll just give you a brief introduction.
Okay.
I'm a stress management and historical trauma specialist, trauma trained and yoga informed addiction recovery coach, ancestral clearing teacher, and yoga instructor, certified yoga teacher. And I use all those things to help people manage stress, whether it's just from straight up chronic pain, which we'll get into in a minute, or whether it's from recovery issues, people in early recovery and recovery generally. I work with people. I don't tend to work with people that are on medication unless it's benzos and they're trying to find their way out, because I know the way, but I'm not a doctor. So it would be under medical supervision. I'd be a coach in that space, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I do. I'm in long-term recovery. I just hit my 11-year mark, September 15th. 2013 was my clean date. And something that's kind of unusual, you may not run into too many people like this. I had an accident when I was 14. I fell off a horse and landed on a rock and broke my fifth lumbar in two, which split front to back, and it pulled the leg nerves with it. And I kind of managed that for about 14 years. And then my back became quite unstable, and doctors said that I needed surgery in order to stabilize that slip. And what commenced there was 4 surgeries altogether, starting in 1982 through 1986, and that's when the medication started. Their answer was opiates and benzodiazepines, and that was their only answer. So I was actually on an opiate or a benzodiazepine of some kind for 31 years, and the last 15 years of that was fentanyl and Ativan. Oof. And you're not going to find many people that were on fentanyl and live for that long. That's a long time to be on fentanyl. So I was really grateful to find Dr. Peter Prescott, who passed away in 2016, but he left a beautiful book, Conquer Chronic Pain, An Innovative Mind-Body Approach. He left a beautiful book, but he had a pain management program at the Betty Ford Center at the time in 2013. And he called me on the phone before I went there, and he said he knew because of the medications I was on. I didn't realize, because my doctor never said, and my prescribing doctor never said anything about any of this stuff. But Dr. Prescott said, I can reset your stress response. And he had me right then, because I was having panic attacks, and I never even told him I was having panic attacks. But I knew right away, this guy knows something that I don't. and he also said, he never promised that he'd take the pain, that pain would go away, but he did say that he'd detox thousands of people off of this drug combo of an opiate and a benzo, and he'd work with fentanyl patients. So and as opposed to my prescribing doctor, who had never helped anybody detox off the prescribing, his prescribing medications, and his suggestion for detoxing was to put me in a coma, which he'd never done before. So I didn't want to be his guinea pig. And fortunately, I found Dr. Prescott, and he took me through his program. And I walked in there with 40 years of chronic pain. And I walked out of there 52 days later with no pain at all.
Wow.
And I still live that way. I mean, I'm still pain-free. So he never promised that, but he had a 94% success rate in that program.
Holy cow.
Yeah. It was powerful. So the message there was that we don't need pharmaceuticals, pain medication, benzos, to help us with chronic pain. They don't actually solve the problem.
No.
Yeah. So what they do is they dehydrate the body. So now the cells can't function properly.
Mm-hmm.
They repress the respiratory system, so now we're not bringing in air and getting out, toxins through the breath.
Uh-huh.
Uh, we're not we're 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 not able to digest our food because the opiate is paralyzing the digestive system.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, how is it that any of those things I just said help the body heal?
They don't.
Yeah. So when is an opiate appropriate? Right.
uh yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, the chronic, not chronic because that's long term. So it would be super acute pain management, something you're in a hospital for,
That's
something
right.
you're undergoing surgery for, but that would be it.
Mhm. Yeah, or like a kidney stone. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have had a kidney stone, and I know what that feels like.
Oh, it's
Uh,
pain.
yeah, that's
Oh.
that's humbling. That's drop your knees level pain, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. So opiates are great, and benzos as well. They're
Mm-hmm.
great for when the nervous system is so charged up from the
Mm-hmm.
trauma that it's experienced that it can't rest.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we bring that in to help the body calm down so that it can then come into healing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think that's important because a lot of people don't know that.
Mm-mm. No. Um, Real quick, may I interject?
Yo, please do.
Congratulations. Okay, sweet. I wanted to say congratulations on your recovery.
Thank you.
11 years, correct?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so
Nice.
much. Hmm.
Of course. I just hit 3 years last week myself.
That's
So
amazing. Congratulations. That's so cool.
thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Isn't it a
So
great feeling?
it is a great feeling. Like at first watching that first 24 hours, oh, that was grueling. That
Hmm.
sucked. The
Hmm.
first 3 days after that, also grueling. That sucked. And then just
Hmm.
watching the days stack up after that was nice and refreshing. Then I can only imagine 11 years because what I've gone through with 3 years, like, ooh, man,
Hmm.
high respect. High respect.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's doable. But you know how I did it? One day at a time,
Yeah,
right?
there it is.
And sometimes one breath at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I had to chunk it down. Like I remember when I first started going to Narcotics Anonymous, they're like this one day at a time thing, and I'm early in my recovery. My poor nervous system is like, what is happening here, right? And
Yep.
I, oh, it's just oh my! It took a while to kind of unwind from all that tension pattern I was in for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, a day was like I couldn't, that was too much time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I actually reduced things down to a breath.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just work in this space. And
Mm-hmm.
that was very helpful for me because I was able to relax better
Yeah.
in that. It was easier for me, or an hour, or
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes, or but just like
Yep.
not a day was just too big.
Yep. Oh, I know. Isn't that weird how like addiction just like alters your time perception? And
Yes.
then getting sober, it's just like 24 hours seems like forever.
Mm-hmm.
It is the
Mm-hmm.
weirdest thing. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, sometimes it really does just come down to staying in the moment. I'm not going to drink for right now.
That's it.
So,
That's it. Yeah, that's it. You know what, Keegan? I'm still practicing that.
mm-hmm.
I'm still practicing staying here
Yeah.
because my tendency, just kind of my programming
Mm-hmm.
generally has been I'm here and what's next?
Yeah.
Here and what's next? So I've got one foot in the present moment and the next foot in the next moment, and maybe a little bit of a foot in the past. So I'm kind of not actually comparing this moment and the next moment to the last moment, you know.
mm-hmm.
So I'm not
Yep.
quite here, and I'm so that's my pattern. So the
Yep.
the journey has been to, can I stay here, A, and B, can I relax in here?
Mm-hmm. That's a big
That
one.
that's been the that's been the journey for me.
Mm-hmm. No, and you're entirely right. Like the relaxation part is big because you can be sober, no problem. Uh, but I mean, you're going to be a white knuckling it if you're not doing some kind of recovery or if you're not doing something.
Mhm.
And I like how you said being in the future and back in the past a little bit, because I always like to
Mhm.
say that living in the future is my anxiety and living in the past is my depression.
There you
And
go. Or the other way. It can be you
yeah.
can switch those. That
Yep.
but you're right. Where that's the from the ego point of view,
Mm-hmm.
um, this is why it's a practice for us because the ego, if you think about it, its job is to keep us safe.
Mm-hmm.
That's its job.
Yep.
But it just has a really it can be very neurotic about how it goes about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the thing that's checking the past and pitching the future and it just can't abide the present moment. It just does
Mm-mm.
not do well there. So there's a lot of protest, right? When we're here and we're just staying here and we're here and the mind comes in and what, well, we got to do this, or we got to do that, or
Mm-hmm.
what about that? And it's just, yeah. So the
Mm-hmm.
journey really in recovery, and I was so grateful to know that there were tools because
Mm-hmm.
until I learned about the tools of recovery and Dr. Prescott's program,
Mm-hmm.
I got by on my wits
Huh.
for
Wow.
years. And then I found out there were tools and I was like, this is great. I even had a meditation practice,
Huh.
but
Nice.
I didn't really know how to apply it. I had a long meditation practice since like the mid 70s,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't really know how to apply it except to deal with my actual physical pain. I knew
Mm.
how to stay present with it to kind of find some relaxation in that moment
Mm-hmm.
when I was having all of that. But
Yeah.
that was the extent that was how my meditation practice served me. But then I was on medication for a long time, and
Mm.
when you're on that kind of
That's not happening.
meditation, you're going to have it prevents it's a veil between
Mm-hmm.
the medication creates this veil between you and the present moment
Yeah.
and any kind of tool like meditation. So you can do it, but it's not as powerful as it is in our when we're sober.
No, it's really not. Because I remember trying that in my active addiction, and it's like, yeah, I can say I did it, but did I get the benefits of it? No.
Mhm.
And meditation is one of those tools that I think everyone can benefit from, not just addiction, but everything. And
Mhm.
it sounds like you actually went on to go and teach yoga, which is active
Mhm.
meditation in a sense, I think. Um, and then you also help people heal, and you also do ancestral clearing.
Mhm. Mhm.
How did you get into that though?
Oh, yeah. So that's a funny story. I think it's a kind of funny story. Very. I was in Dr. Prescott's pain management program,
Hmm.
and he had a wellness practitioner in there, John Newton,
Mm.
whose website is healthbeyondbelief.com, who
Mm.
did ancestral clearing, which I didn't know that's what he did. I thought he was the guy that did the tapping. He does bilateral EFT tapping. So
Mm.
I teach that too. But anyway, I knew him as the tapping guy because that's how he was kind of known
Hmm.
around the Betty Ford campus. And so I get into Dr. Peter. I spent 12 days in a detox, in their chemical detox part of the hospital there that they have
Mm.
attached to the treatment center.
Mm.
And they kind of poured me out of the bed. I was so weak that they just put me in a wheelchair and they wheeled me in there. So
Mm.
I'm in my first day, and I didn't mention this. I have a science background, so I was
Huh.
taught like how to from biology, and I was
Mm.
taught like the kind of the what you need to do to be a research scientist, like the things you
Mm.
need to know and how to do it and things like that. So I
Mm.
have this orientation.
Uh-huh.
So I have this kind of analytical mind that
Mm.
loves to just like figure stuff out and analyze, all
Mm.
the things. And anyway, I'm sitting in Dr. Prescott's room, and John Newton walks in with this, paper for everybody and hands everybody this a piece of paper. and it had a prayer on it.
Hmm.
Now I knew at that time I had read and done a little study
Hmm.
about the power of prayer and the power
Hmm.
of meditation. At the time, at around 2013, there had already been studies that showed that they were powerful, and
Hmm.
I was intrigued, but I hadn't bit the bull. I hadn't taken the bait. I was still kind of like, well, what is this? I didn't,
Hmm.
I was still kind of standing back, and certainly part of me didn't even believe it. So that's just
Hmm.
me
Yeah.
and my orientation at the time. Anyway,
Hmm.
he says to us, what's the level of pain that you have at the moment? And mine was at about maybe a 9 out of a 10.
Oof.
And well, remember, I'm
Hmm.
right out of a
Yeah.
detox bed, and I had a lot of gut pain and stuff.
Yeah.
um and everybody in the room, so there's 20 people in the room that are detoxing just like me, and
Hmm.
and the numbers from 0 to 10 in the room were 5 to 20. That was the range, right? And I thought, okay, I see that. and
Hmm.
and then he said, read the prayer, and but silently. We didn't read it out loud, we just read it silently. Well, here's
Hmm.
what happened. It's just one sheet of paper, and it's in English.
Uh-huh.
And I got halfway through the prayer, and
Hmm.
I felt the room shift.
Huh.
And that's what I said. And I was like, okay, I noticed that. And this is what I said to myself:
Hmm.
Elizabeth, you're detoxing. You're imagining this. Like I went right there. This is not real. I went. That's where I went. Right.
Uh-huh.
And then I finished reading the prayer, and my pain just, so my pain went from
Huh.
like an 8 or a 9 to a 2.
Hmm. Wow.
And I was like, that's real.
Hmm.
And everybody's, and then John's, what's everybody's number? And everybody's number was like from a 2 to a 20, an 8, went down from an 8 to a 0. And
Wow.
so I was like, what the heck happened in this room?
Hmm.
I know something happened. you know, what
Uh-huh.
is it? And is it measurable? And
Hmm.
can he repeat it? This is all science, right? And
Yep.
then I'm like, does he teach this? Can you learn this?
Hmm.
And the answer to all that was yes. And measurement is what we would call anecdotal, but
Uh-huh.
people keep reporting their experience, and we don't make claims in ancestral clearing that we can heal anything,
Hmm.
but we bring in the spiritual aspects of
Hmm.
the issue at hand, and
Yeah.
we help people do that. And so anyway, I was like, I took the first training out of treatment because I was just like, I'm sold. That's what I'm doing, and I've been doing it. I've been doing it now for a little over 10 years.
Holy
Somewhere on the
cow.
planet, almost every day. Yeah.
Huh.
So yeah, it's powerful.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go on.
Oh, that's okay. It's just so people are saying, what is it, right? So what are we
Hmm.
doing?
Yeah.
So think about you can think about it in Newtonian terms, or you can think about it in quantum terms, right?
Hmm.
You can think about the genetics, the epigenetics, really, of the energy, the tendencies of our grandparents and their grandparents and our parents, and that information passing to us
Hmm.
as kind of evolution's best guess about, you're going to need this in order to live in the environment you're born into.
Hmm.
So that's the beautiful thing the the genetic kind of system, is the epigenetics, or these switches that turn on and off depending on what's happening in the environment. So
Huh.
you have this beautiful flexible model that
Uh-huh.
in terms of the organism, that can shift from one generation to another. And anyway, so we get information from our ancestors.
Hmm.
You're going to need this. For instance, like, one of the things that was in my mother's side from my grandfather
Hmm.
was bipolar disorder, and
Mm.
my my mother and her three half brothers all had bipolar disorder, but my
Uh-huh.
brother and I didn't.
Huh.
So isn't that
Interesting.
interesting?
Yeah.
And we could get into a whole thing about that, but I won't. I'll just say like something was going on and we
Mhm.
didn't get it, but they did, and maybe there was something about their environment that was different than ours.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just as an example. So that's
Mhm.
kind of the Newtonian way. Now we look at quantum physics. The quantum physicists tell us that we can access the past, present, and future all through the present moment.
Mhm.
It's all here in the now, all of it.
Mhm.
Because I was like, how does this work? How is ancestral clearing? I need to understand how it works. That's just my analytical mind, just
Mhm.
chewing on a problem until it solves the problem. That's what it does.
Uh-huh.
And I realized, oh, because we're accessing the present moment, that's why we can access the whole lineage. We can access
Hmm.
the present, the past, and we through the present we can access the past. And you can even uh, from the quantum physics point of view, you can even affect the future. Now, I can't make any claims like that because the science hasn't been done on this particular modality.
Mhm.
But there have been quantum physicists say that because they've done the science, they've done the studies
Mhm.
on from the things that make them able to say that they've done the studies. And I'm not a good enough physicist to be with the math to be able
Uh-huh.
to like follow all that, but
Mhm.
I'm enough to understand the basic premise. So we're using the present moment to access our past.
Mhm.
And the other thing we do is we bring in source, creator, higher power, whatever you want to call the thing that made all this.
Mhm.
We ask it to come in and help us release that which no longer serves us. So we're putting ourselves in a please help me situation,
Mhm.
and we're open to releasing. Right,
Huh.
we're open to releasing that which no longer serves us. So that's kind of the premise of it.
Mhm.
Anyway,
That's awesome. So, whenever your ancestors pass down something that's unwanted, how would you say you recognize that for someone?
okay. So I would I would rephrase that slightly and
Okay.
say unresolved.
Ooh, okay.
Right. So, and I'll give you an example,
Okay.
and maybe you can give me an example back from your family. So, when
Okay.
I was four, because
Mhm.
I distinctly remember it. 4 years old was a big year for me. A lot of things happened. One of the things was I was sitting in the living room, and I had this awareness that there was something in the family, my mother and father, that
Mhm.
and kind of in the environment that was very
Mhm.
heavy and dark and scary,
Mhm.
and I didn't know what it was, but I felt it.
Mhm.
And because we didn't talk about things like that in my family,
Mhm.
that was just like no way. I mean, we didn't talk about anything that was unpleasant. That
Mhm.
was just if it's not pleasant, don't say anything. So that's kind of the way I was raised.
Mhm.
So no wonder I ended up in chronic pain because I couldn't emote. I had to just be quiet. And
Mhm.
anyway, so I felt this thing, and I felt it, but it was interesting because I carried it.
Hmm.
I felt it, and
Mhm.
I didn't know what to do with it, and but I knew it was real,
Mhm.
and I didn't understand anything about it. I couldn't talk to anybody about it until I got into this practice,
Huh.
and
Okay.
I was in a session with John Newton one
Mhm.
time, and he kind of said he he, has this, he understood, he knew there was something there, and he
Mhm.
asked me what it was, and I was able to presence myself and feel it, and I talked about it, and we did a clearing around it. And what I
Huh.
was carrying was the grief that my mother had losing her mother in the Second World War,
Oh wow.
whatever my dad went through as a soldier in the Second World War in the Pacific,
Mhm.
and whatever his parents and her parents went through prior to that, all that weight, and it was really around war and
Mm-hmm.
and grief was what that was. So it was really special for me, just a real grace for me to be able to find somebody, appear in my life who in the John Newton was the one,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to release that. Yeah. It
Wow.
takes a lot of energy to store that stuff. It takes a lot of energy in the body to like hang on to stuff like that. And then when you don't hang on
Mm-hmm.
to it anymore, you have this big opening. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then with all that negativity in there, you can't get any positivity in its place while it's still there.
Oh no, it's busy. It's busy sending a signal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's busy sending a signal. I can give you guys, the listeners, just a little piece, a little
Yeah.
experience of. There's about 30 different ways to get at the burden,
Okay.
and through a session, but I
Mm-hmm.
can share one
Okay.
with you here.
Yeah.
It's as I said, it's in the form of a prayer, and
Okay.
anybody listening. So it works. In Obviously, it works because we're working in the present moment.
Uh-huh.
The replay is just as powerful as this live session,
Okay. Cool.
right? So everybody who's listening to this, just notice whatever sensation you're feeling in your body. Like I feel my sitting bones on the seat, on the chair here, and I can feel my feet on the floor, and I've got a little something going on in the right side of my back behind my ribs, and I give the whole thing a number of about 2.5. So mild, but there. And so whatever
Okay.
your number is from 0 to 10, take note of what the number is, and just put your attention on the breath. Just breathe gently into that sensation and let these words pass over you. We're going to use the word forgive to mean offering up that which no longer serves us.
Mm.
We're offering it up to Source, asking Source to help us release. We're not asking it to take anything away. We're asking it to help us release that which no longer serves us. And we use that word forgive to mean that. So here we go.
Ah. Okay.
Creator, all that you are, thank you for the bountiful blessings you bestow on us. For everyone listening to this, all their relationships, all their ancestors, and all of their relationships throughout all space, time, dimension, realms, lifetimes, and incarnations. For all the hurts and wrongs ever done to them in thought, word, or action. Any hurts and wrongs they did to others, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Please help you all forgive each other, help you all forgive yourselves for all of it, no matter what happened. Please and thank you. For any time anyone was abandoned, not supported, nurtured, and loved the way they needed. Anytime anyone abandoned others, weren't able to support, nurture, and love others in the ways they needed, and anytime they weren't able to love themselves, please help you all forgive and release one another. Forgive and release yourselves, please and thank you. For all war, battle, Holocaust, genocide, persecution, slavery, injustice, any oppression, misuse of power, position, authority, politically, spiritually, medically, legally, or in any other way. Please help you all forgive one another and forgive yourselves. Please and thank you. For all suicide, murder, rape, abortion, infidelity, infertility. All of it. Everyone involved, indirectly or directly. Please help you all forgive one another and forgive yourselves. Please and thank you. Please help you all release all negativity, all burden that's not serving the highest good now and forever. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Now just take a nice big breath in and let it out, and notice how that feels in the body compared to where you started.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah. And my poor science
That's
mind wants to know, what's the mechanism?
uh-huh.
That's so funny. But everybody, that's our response. Everybody feels that.
Uh-huh.
You
That is
know,
crazy.
Yeah, because the thing is that we come in with the burden.
Mm-hmm.
So we're used to carrying it.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even know we're carrying it until we don't carry it anymore.
Huh.
And
Yeah.
that's what this reveals to us. Yeah.
Huh. It's kind of like the you don't know what you don't know until you know what you didn't know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was having like some back pain all day because I drive for work a whole bunch, right?
Hmm.
And so I was having some back pain, and as you were saying that, I just felt it just kind of like, whew. And now it's like, huh, that is very, very cool. So anyone listening to that, you can always find this episode at retrievingsanity.com.
Yeah.
uh, around the 30-minute mark. It's
Awesome.
around there.
Awesome.
But that was really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I always like to give people a taste of like, what the heck is Elizabeth talking about? You know, she's talking around this thing. What is it? So it's always good to give people an experience of it,
Mm-hmm.
so that because that's real. Now, let me tell you what I did last week,
Okay.
which was amazing. We have sound healers in town
Mm-hmm.
that you know they play the gong. I played the gong myself, but I wasn't Friday night. I wasn't doing that. They play the gong and like all kinds of drums and
Mm-hmm.
you know, crystal bowls and shakers and you know koji chimes and all kinds of you know different instruments and singing and stuff and
Mm-hmm.
and they so a group of them got together and formed what's called the Sacred Society, the Society for Sacred Listening.
Huh.
And so what? And they asked me to come in and join the group. It's a group of 8 or more,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how many people are there for the day or the evening or
Uh-huh.
for the event. And they asked me to come in and run silent ancestral clearing prayers under the sound
Hmm.
as part of the sacred listening experience. And I did that last Friday. We had our first public event. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Wow.
So it's yeah, it's a very, and I live in Lawrence, Kansas.
Uh-huh.
So you know we're home to the oldest and largest indigenous university here.
Oh, cool.
And when I do live ancestral clearing events around the Kansas City area,
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting how many people come in that are that come into these events that are this combination of European, African American, and indigenous.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, and that imagine the burden that they carry,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we call when we get like somebody who's got indigenous and European in their ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
In this practice, we call that conflicting DNA,
Oh, yeah.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
clear for that stuff. Yeah, we clear for that. Just as an example. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it could be pretty powerful. So you can imagine running silent prayers just kind of in consciousness in a place like this on the planet where
Mm-hmm.
there's been so much strife and so forth. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is a place where the Civil War was, you know, there was a lot of that here too. So there's a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of interesting to just sit in this space of oneness and see what drops in terms of what needs to be cleared. Yeah, that's amazing.
Huh.
Yeah.
That would have been really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And yeah, it's super fascinating is a word that it's measurable. That and I love that you actually led with that because a lot of people hearing about this kind of stuff at first just go like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. But whenever you say, but science has it, people's ears tend to perk up a little bit. And this is one of those things that I think a lot of people would benefit from knowing, because it's not something you do just one time, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've been in the practice, as I said, as a practitioner for a little over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm also in the practice myself John Newton has like a monthly program once a week. He
Mm-hmm.
does a clearing thing, and he has a free call once a month that everybody can jump up on his website healthbeyondbelief.com and check out his free call, and then you can get a sense of how he does the work. And then he's got an advanced twice a month, and I'm at those, so
Oh wow.
I'm in the work as a practitioner, but I'm in
Mm-hmm.
the work as a as someone who's actually doing the work, right? In
Mm-hmm.
terms of my own clearing my own stuff, and we
Mm-hmm.
carry a lot. We carry a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, and even as
Uh.
a practitioner, when I do the work, I feel like I get cleared.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm clearing for a client who and we have stuff that's in common, we both get cleared, right?
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Because I was just about to make the analogy, like the dentist has to have another dentist to do the dental work, right? Uh, but I mean, if it works while you're helping
Oh,
out others, oh, you,
yeah. So let's be very careful here. I love that you said that because it gives me an opening to clarify.
okay, go for it.
So, yes, I'm a practitioner of ancestral clearing,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not doing the healing.
Mm-hmm.
Source is doing the healing.
Oh yes.
And the power of the practice is in the present moment and in the client being open to release.
Hmm.
And when we put a prayer out to Source and say, please help me release that which no longer serves, we're going to get an answer.
Ah.
Yeah, yeah. So Source is doing the work. I'm just really helping to kind of focus the work for the client.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all my job is. And the minute I start thinking that I'm doing the work, now I'm going to start taking their stuff on.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's not what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going for that.
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to make yourself sick doing that.
Well,
No.
no,
No.
I don't want to get my ego involved in this process.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Yes. I.
this is a this is a space between source and the client, and I try and stay in that lane, and I have to
Mm.
put my ego goes in the other room until I'm done the session.
Ah.
Yeah,
So you compartmentalize it and just go, yeah, you're done with for now. You're kind of just gone. But
this is the value of a meditation practice in this space.
mm, yes,
Yeah,
because you get to actually separate yourself from self,
that's right.
which a lot of people don't really understand right off the bat. But like you said, in meditation, in this kind of work, it makes total sense.
Sure.
Um,
Sure. So the easy way to kind of understand what we're talking about in meditation, the
mhm,
way I would say it, see if it rings true for you,
okay.
is that I'm having a conversation with you,
Hmm.
and there's a part of me that's witnessing me having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And, who is this? Who is the one that's witnessing? That's the
Uh.
true self.
Hmm.
The personality that's Elizabeth, that's having this, that's doing the interchange and helping to you and I are having this conversation. Those are our personalities.
Mm.
But the parts of us that are witnessing us having this conversation, those are our true selves, because we're talking to our true selves as well.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like always having a second perspective.
That's
Uh,
right.
so that's the way I kind of like to think about it. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, it almost feels like there's a little switch in my head that it's like, all right, I need to kind of get into this like mindset. And then it's like, bloop. And then it's like, it doesn't necessarily go like right into it, but it definitely eases uh, myself into it. I don't know if that's a little mind trick I came up with myself a long time ago or not, but it just kind of feels like it.
Sounds like a
Um,
way for you to access that, because it's always
mhm,
there. That witness is always witnessing. But
mhm,
can we get the rest of the mind on board to be able to access that? That's the thing, you know?
mhm.
Yeah.
Uh, so so you teach people how to meditate,
I
correct?
can. Yeah, I can. That's part of my yoga practice. Sure.
Yeah. So what would be one of those things that you've had most people hit a roadblock on? Like not being able to step outside of themselves per se.
Well, I'll tell you what the roadblock is pretty much
Okay.
with everybody who meditates. Well, at least in my experience and the people that I talk to,
Hmm.
is We have habits and patterns, and people in addiction and mental illness, we all know this. We have patterns,
Mm-hmm.
and those patterns, more often than not, if they're negative, they're not serving us.
Yeah.
But they have an energy. This is why I'm in stress management, because we have
Mm-hmm.
we have stress habits as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have an energy. So think about it in terms of a physics problem. An
Mm-hmm.
object in motion stays in motion until it's acted on by an equal or opposite force.
Mm-hmm.
So think about your habit as an object in motion.
Ah.
And it's going to stay in motion until
Mm-hmm.
it's acted on by an equal or opposite force.
Mm-hmm.
And what would that equal or opposite force be? Well, one is getting clean and sober.
Yeah.
That's a pretty powerful, you know, force coming in on
Mm-hmm.
a substance use disorder, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So getting sober.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is meditation.
Huh.
Now, isn't that interesting? How does that
Yeah.
work? This
Yeah.
is
How
how it
does that work?
works. Yeah. So we have a habit,
Mm-hmm.
and the nervous system and the mind follows the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we do life. We do it with this habit. And then we go into meditation and we start focusing on the breath, just focusing on the breath, or maybe we're focusing on a mantra. And we can be there. For me, it's about 45 seconds. Still, even today, after all this practice, this is the way my mind is.
Mm-hmm.
After about 45 seconds of staying present with the breath, the mind just jumps and it wants to, get up and go away, or think about this, or it's just not here. It jumps, right? It goes to something
Mm-hmm.
else, and then we follow it. Right? We go running on, and oh, wait a minute, I'm meditating, and we come back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then breathe or mantra or whatever it is, and it happens again. Well, isn't that interesting? And our
Mm-hmm.
the urge is to stop doing the practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, isn't that interesting? So, one way to look at that is the the object in motion having the momentum it does
Mm-hmm.
is asserting itself.
Uh-huh.
We're trying to change the program, and we're coming up against our own resistance
Hmm.
when the mind jumps and goes, no, I want to do this and I want to do that, and I don't want to do this, I don't want to stay here, I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we're coming up against our own resistance.
Ah.
Everybody has this problem in meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what's cool is when we stay in the practice, we feel our resistance and we stay here anyway, and we keep coming back to this moment and the breath or the mantra. Every time we do that, we're changing the brain, and we're giving it a new way to live.
Mm.
We talk about in Narcotics Anonymous, show me a new way to live.
Mm-hmm.
This is an actual practice of that.
Mm.
We're giving it a new way to live. So in meditation, when we're like, I can't do this, I don't want to do it, I'm not doing it, all the things that that show up in meditation, and we stay here and we
Mm-hmm.
continue to breathe or say the mantra or whatever it is, however we're doing that, we're retraining the brain to live in a new way, a new program. We're changing the momentum of the old one, and
Mm-hmm.
we're bringing in a new one. So that's an example of a very powerful tool and how it works uh, to change an object in motion that's staying in motion. We need
Uh-huh.
to bring in a power, something that's got a force equal or opposite or stronger than it, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so when you sit in a meditation, and beginners, be brave and stay there and hear this, because every time you meet your resistance in your meditation, that's your evolutionary edge. And you can ask yourself, do I want to evolve in this moment, or do I want to go back into my old habit? And I ask myself that in my recovery as a general rule. This thing that I'm doing, whatever it is, this thing that I'm doing, like talking to you right now, is this helping me to find a new way to live? Or is it helping me? Am I referencing the old addictive programs,
Mm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
have agency in this moment. We have the energy and the imprint of the past on the brain in the present moment, but the brain is so powerful that we can leverage the power of the present moment and change the trajectory of the brain by
Mm.
our choices. So we have a lot of power in the present. When we heal in the present moment, we don't heal in the past or the future. We only heal now. So our
Mm.
choices here and now, they make a difference. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that is a very uh interesting idea about every time your mind is going to hop away, that's your evolutionary edge. That is really cool. I'm going to have to take that with me.
Awesome.
So
There it is.
because
All yours.
you totally just nailed the issue with meditation. I think, like you said, for literally everyone, it's always just like, all right, I'm here, and now I'm going there. I'm back. Now I'm going there. I'm
That's
back.
right.
I'm going there. And it just never, like, eventually it seems to, like, there's moments where it gets longer in between those, but
That's right.
and it feels good whenever it gets there, but it always, there's just something that's like, oh hey, by the way, look over here, and you're like, huh? Oh
Mhm.
no.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And after all these years, um, it's so interesting because I have a friend of mine who's also in recovery who teaches
mhm.
meditation, and he uses the word turbulence, which I love that
Ooh,
word. So we
yeah.
get into meditation, and some meditations are more, we experience more turbulence than others. So the
Mhm.
mind is more active in some and than others. And I'll tell you, boy, when spring comes, early spring comes, something happens to my meditation practice pretty much on a regular basis. I don't
Mhm.
know what day it's going to be, but it gets very active and kind of frenetic, and the turbulence is pretty epic. And I'm
Huh.
just kind of like, okay, here we are again. And the key there is not to judge the moment and call myself bad,
Mhm.
which was was a tendency. So I'm
Mhm.
not. There's nothing wrong with me. Better just to get curious. Oh, well, look at that, and go back to the breath.
Yeah.
Right? Then no beating yourself up. It's just the nature of the mind. It's just part of what it does.
Mhm.
And the more I have, so there's that issue, and
Uh-huh.
my meditation practice is so helpful because um, I feel like I'm a lot more productive during the day,
Mhm.
but I don't have any more time. I just use it more efficiently,
Mhm.
and also when stuff happens in my life, I can come back to center more quickly.
Mhm.
Right now, I have a
Mhm.
breath
Mhm.
practice, so I know how to kind of leverage the breath, and that's part of my meditation practice. But it's one of the things that I teach in stress management
Mhm.
is how to leverage the power of the breath to really keep you steady. Yeah, and here we are on eclipse day and new moon time, and this is a kind of a volatile period. What do you think I did today? Long meditation.
Oh man. I wish I had been able to do that. But yeah, you're right. And during those moments of non-judgment, I think that that was one of the hardest parts for me, was always sitting there, because I have the worst inner critic ever, of course, because I'm what is the term, uniquely uh different, no, it's not
Terminally unique. Terminally
terminally,
unique.
thank you, yes, yes. um so everything of my own is the worst. No one understands, but no, you just nailed everything, and then some. But that, it just means that whenever those moments pop up, I can't get mad at myself. I have to forgive that part of myself that wants to get mad at myself too, right?
You gotta love it all.
Yep.
Yeah, that's been a huge part of my recovery has been, can I love even this? So
Mm-hmm.
there've been a couple of really key things. One is, can I love even this part of me? That's
Mm-hmm.
been a big deal. So that helps me, opens my heart, and the other one has been, which I still work with
Mm-hmm.
from time to time, is when is it going to be enough?
That's a big one.
Yeah, when
Well,
is it going to be enough?
I know
Whatever
for
it is.
I was about to say, I know for me, one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. So,
Well, there's
Yeah.
that in terms of, you know, substance
Mhm.
of choice and that kind of thing, behavior of choice.
Mhm.
And the tendency, certainly for me, I kind of grew up around it,
Mhm.
is we're always striving for quote unquote excellence.
Mhm.
So I'm not just a recovering addict and recovering pain sufferer, right?
Mhm.
I'm a recovering perfectionist and I'm a
Yeah.
recovering overachiever. And, you know, those are all the things that are driving the substance use in the first place because, you know, all these behaviors are about trying to keep
Mhm.
ourselves safe when
Mhm.
we don't know any other way. We're just kind of trying to find our way in the world. Like I said, I got by on my wits for a long time before I knew there were tools. Thank God for the tools in recovery.
Yeah. Because you wouldn't have those 11 years, right? Or you had blow me away that you do all this and you still go and help people because you're living step 12, essentially.
I am. And let me tell you how I do that.
Okay.
Let me tell you how I do that because that's people kind of go, "Oh, wow, what are you doing? You know, how do you do that?"
Mhm.
This is how I do that. I try to divide my day into three parts, each 8 hours, 8 hours
Okay.
apiece.
Mhm.
8 hours in bed. I don't always sleep for eight
Mhm.
hours, but if I'm not asleep, I'm in meditation.
Mhm.
So I just, you know, start running a prompt mantra in my brain
Yeah.
and I'll go back to sleep. Or I'm just going to meditate. I've actually spent nights just meditating all night. That happens sometimes. Not often.
Uh-huh.
Not so much anymore, but it did for a while.
Mhm.
So 8 hours in bed, 8 hours at work, and 8 hours on my recovery.
Mhm.
Hopefully, my recovery, my work is part of my recovery. But what I mean by the 8 hours is part of my recovery, you know, my chores, my cooking, my service work, going to meetings, all that stuff is in that 8 hours. And then my job, my website, my clients, my, you know, all that kind of stuff associated with the business, 8 hours.
Mhm.
So I try and break the day up like that because if I don't give myself enough time to sleep and enough and spend enough time on my own recovery, I'm
Mhm.
not good to anybody.
Yeah. Yep.
But I think that being able to do that consciously and with the beautiful practices that I have been gifted with, I
Mhm.
think those are the things that allow me to do as much as I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really awesome. Because I think a lot of people that get into recovery, especially early recovery, a lot of people strive to work a step 12, or something. A lot of people that I've met, and I think that that just speaks to the hearts of the addicts and stuff. Is that uh, the addict is grossly misunderstood.
Yes, I would say that for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like you said, all the substance was actually a symptom of what was wrong.
Sure.
And what we thought, I know for myself, was that it was the solution to the problem until it became the problem. And then I know one way to solve problems, and it just means I didn't have enough of whatever it was. And so the cycle just continued.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. Dr. Gabor Mate says, who's a trauma specialist, and he's
mm-hmm,
great at it. He's very wise in the recovery in the addiction space.
mm-hmm,
Um, he says, "Don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain."
mm-hmm,
So every person that I know in recovery, and you know, 11 years worth, that's a lot of rooms in and out of rooms, you
mm-hmm,
know, on a regular basis.
mm-hmm,
Um, Everyone I know in recovery was a chronic pain sufferer first. We'll define chronic pain in just a moment. And before
mm-hmm,
they were a chronic pain sufferer, they had unresolved trauma.
mm-hmm,
So we're trying to solve a problem in trauma where we've had a wound that hasn't healed and we're defensive and we're disconnected from one another. You know, addiction is this disease of connection, disconnection,
mm-hmm,
right? So
mm-hmm,
trauma disconnects us from ourselves and others.
mm-hmm,
So this is where it starts, right? And it
mm-hmm.
develops into a chronic pain problem. And chronic pain is any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more is chronic.
Mm,
Any pain, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, any of it, it all sends the same signal to the brain: it hurts.
mm,
So the brain can't tell the difference between a broken bone and a broken heart.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a whole kind of physiology that happens between that changes from acute pain to chronic pain. There's
Mm-hmm.
like a whole physiology, and it changes the brain. And now we're
Mm-hmm.
like, I got to fix this thing, and nobody knows how. And the quickest thing is like alcohol's in every practically every corner of every town. Like
Literally.
it's, and sugar, right, which
Mm-hmm.
is alcohol, and then
Yep.
drugs are easily available now. So there are all kinds of substances that we can. There's gambling, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of things we can do to try and cope with the pain that are readily available, and we tend to take the thing that's most available to us,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Because that's the best we know.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's very true. Um, so I do really hate to say this. We are at the end of the episode. Um, so here on Retrieving Sanity, I do like to get people back on for second, third episodes, so on. And you have one heck of a story, and we didn't even get close to all of it. Um, and so my question is, could we expect to see you back on the show?
Oh, I'd
Uh,
love that. I'd love to have another conversation with you. Really, it's
okay,
fun.
sweet.
This is one of my favorite topics is recovery. Like,
Yeah.
we ought to have a whole thing on relapse, right?
Yes.
Like
Oh,
how
yeah.
to deal with that. Like what's that
Mm-hmm.
all about, and what happens, and how do we,
Mm-hmm.
what do we do to manage that and all that? Yeah, I'd be happy to come back. Thank you for the invitation.
Sweet. Of course, because again, you have so much knowledge with 11 years in recovery and being a stress management. And we also need to kind of touch on the historical trauma because that was really interesting. I haven't really explored that. But I can't thank you enough for being on and offering that prayer. That was amazing. And your perspective on everything, just superb. I love it.
Well, thank you so much, Keegan. It was my pleasure, and I appreciate the invitation.
Of course. And real quick, what shout outs do you got to people, your social medias, your websites, anything like that?
Oh, yeah, you can find me at my website, which is my name with a hyphen between the first and last name, Elizabeth, with a dash, and then kipp.com, Kipp.com. And you can find me on social media. I'm not on TikTok, but I'm on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, and you can find me there. Or you
Okay.
can hit me up at my website. Yep, it's fine.
Awesome. And for anyone looking for those links, they'll be on retrievingsanity.com underneath the guest tabs with Elizabeth Kipp's picture. And we will see her in the near future. So, thank you all for tuning in, and we shall see y'all next week. Thank you again, Elizabeth. Right. And stopping recording now.